Hello and welcome to another video. If you're here for the first time, you're very welcome, and if you have been here before, welcome to you, welcome to returning subscribers and everybody in between. So today it's going to be a bit of a chit chat video, and it's going to be about what I've learnt in this second Sisterlocks journey. If you've been here before, you'll know that this is my second Sisterlocks journey and I'm 2 years in now. And yeah, just wanted to share a few thoughts I've had of things that I've learnt, and really I've thought about a lot on the second Sisterlocks journey. So stay tuned to find out what these thoughts are. So one of the first things that I've learned on this Sisterlocks journey is about lock envy and not envying other people's locks. It's really easy to do when you're on your Sisterlocks journey, as I'm sure everybody that's watching this does. I know I have done a lot. I've gone through YouTube or looked at photos online and I thought, wow, those are amazing locks. But what I've learned on this second journey is that my lock journey is not the same as anybody else's lock journey. And there are all sorts of reasons why that journey is different. You know, it depends on what the state of my hair was like at the very beginning, and it depends on how it grows, how thick it is, how I look after it, and even down to the colour. As you may know, I use henna, so you know I'm not going to have jet black locks. And so what I've really learned to embody on this journey is to stop envying other people's locks and to really just think about my own locks and how they're developing, and just keeping it focused in that way. It's great to look at other people's Sisterlocks, and also you get lots of ideas around styling, etc., and how other people are looking after their locks. But I've just really learned to stop envying other people's locks. So the second thing that I've learned on this second Sisterlocks journey is to contradict myself on the first point I made is about lock envy. Now I'm going to explain what I mean. The lock envy that I've been experiencing, that I'm learning about on this second journey, is envy about my own Sisterlocks. So on my first journey, my hair was thicker and it was longer at the start before I had the locks established. And so by the time I was 1 year in, 2 years in, at the stage I am now, my locks were longer and they were thicker. And you know, that could be the grass is greener syndrome. But I've looked at some of those old photos and I'm going to stop doing it. But looking back and maybe thinking about that journey, it's made me a little bit envious of myself, which is ridiculous. So tying back to the first point of learning not to envy other people's locks, but then envying my own first set of Sisterlocks, what I've got to do is sort of link the two together and embody that message and stop envying myself as my previous self with my first set of locks. So that's the second point. The third thing that I've learned along this journey is about being a lot more informed. I'd say that when I first got my Sisterlocks installed, that first set, I knew enough. I knew what they were, I knew a bit about how they looked, but I had no idea about how they were done. I'd never even heard of a 3 or 4 point rotation. I didn't know the differences between the two of them, that a 3 point gives you fuller looking locks and a 4 point gives you finer locks, which is great if you've got a lot of density. So this time around I've done a lot more research, and I could say that I've taken a bit more control around the Sisterlocks journey by not giving all of that duty, I think it's a duty, I'd call it that duty to my Sisterlocks consultant, and really taking more control myself, understanding what's going on more, spending a bit more time just looking at my locks, looking at my scalp, seeing how everything's developing, and just being informed about all the sorts of issues that are linked with wearing locks, wearing longer locks, locks that are too tight, all of those sorts of issues, and also just being up to date with all of the different products that are available on the market, and all of the new techniques maybe that are coming out, or new tools that are coming out. So it's just about being a bit more informed. So linked to being more informed about my Sisterlocks in general, just also being informed about styling options, but also what the impact of those styling choices is on Sisterlocks and the health of Sisterlocks. So yeah, just generally being more informed, better informed, and continuing to do the research and keeping up to date, and not just leaving that up to somebody else, whether it's a loctician or just generally leaving that information out there in the public domain but not accessing it and making use of it. Another thing, which is it's linked to the last point I made, but it's about thinking about the health of my Sisterlocks and also taking active steps to do things that will boost the health of my hair generally, and of course the Sisterlocks. So whether it's exercise, regular exercise, which involves, I do high intensity interval training, HIIT, and also other things that are relaxing like yoga and a bit of meditation, and other things like diet, eating healthily, all of that sort, because all of it feeds into producing healthy hair and just having a healthy lifestyle. And the newest thing that I've done on this second Sisterlocks journey is looking at water intake. Now, I don't know about you, but I struggle with the water intake. On a good day, maybe I'll have 2 or 3 glasses of water. If I'm working out, it's different. So I got myself one of those massive, I think it's a 2.2 litre bottles. So I fill that up at the beginning of the day. That's now on my desk. So throughout the day, I pour a glass. And I think this is day 3 or 4. So it's a work in progress. So just all of these healthy things, whether it's exercise, diet, and the newest thing, water intake, all of these are important for it's just body health generally, but health of the hair. So the next thing that I've learned on this second Sisterlocks journey is to actually be a bit more experimental. And I'm more experimental in that I have explored DIYs galore. So I'll run you through some of the DIYs that I've been experimenting with. I use an aromatherapy and water spritz after sports, a fenugreek and aromatherapy spritz. I've made black African shampoo, DIY shampoo. I use fenugreek oil. I'm also at the moment using umla oil, so stay tuned a bit later in the video for more information about the umla oil, and henna as well. I think those are all of them. Oh, and of course I've made some shea butter and mango butter mix, which I use when I'm applying henna. And so yeah, this has been a really good opportunity, I found, to just explore all of those avenues and just see what I can do with things that I can buy in the shops, but also make my own products so that I know exactly what's in them. And then I've tailored the mixtures accordingly to get different scents or different qualities. Because before, on my first journey, if it wasn't from a known brand and it didn't come off the shelf ready to use, I wasn't interested. And it's great, you all have to try what works for you. But I found this second time around to really try these DIY products and even just look at the different properties of, say, different oils and think, okay, great, I love the moisturising properties of that particular oil. I like that this particular oil is great for strengthening, or great for growth, or great for thickening. Then, mixing all of the relevant oils together, and then also the scents from the aromatherapy oils. So lavender, there's so many that ginger, lemongrass, all sorts. So Rose Absolute, which has a glorious smell and is great for aging skin, for example. So just being able to use all of those, or some of them, in DIY mixtures, I've found to be great. And I certainly wouldn't have had the confidence or even knowledge back then to have used those on my Sisterlocks the first time around. So that's a great thing this time. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is length. Length, the thorny issue of length. I don't focus a lot on length in these videos, and I think length it's a personal thing. In my first journey, I think I got to about here roughly with my locks. So I'm a way off that length, and more of the locks were longer, whereas this is a little bit more tapered. I think this second journey has actually made me a lot more decisive about issues of length, because personally for me, I believe that I'm not going to leave my Sisterlocks to grow to an extremely long length. Slight admission here, I am scissor happy, and I had traditional locks before I had Sisterlocks. And I do get the scissors out and I do cut, but I think generally speaking, and this is my personal opinion, for the length of hair and also issues around thinning, because I've been doing a bit of research around alopecia and lock thinning and lock length. I think personally for me, once my Sisterlocks get to a certain length, I'm going to keep them at that length or cut them a bit. And I'm thinking maybe about, for me, about this sort of length is, you know, maybe around here is good enough, because hey, and I know because when the locks were around there at that stage, I didn't actually do an awful lot with them. I'd tie them up, I didn't leave them half tied up. So for me, I'm not going to leave them to get to what I class as an excessively long length, because there are some practical considerations. I've had long extensions before, and I've had longer traditional locks before, and you know, my long traditional locks were probably about this length when I then cut into them, and they'd get hooked up in my handbag, hooked up in clothes and all that sort of thing. And also with Sisterlocks being a lot thinner, I just think personally, the integrity of each individual Sisterlock isn't there if they are much, much longer. I mean, obviously you're not going to have strands on their own, but sometimes they are. As a body, they are strong, but individually they're not as strong. So my personal view on that and my take on it during this second journey is that I've got a rough idea in my mind of a limit in terms of length that I'd like them, you know, beyond which I'm not going to let them grow. I'll just trim them and keep them at that length. But that's just my view at this point. And I don't know, people may or may not disagree, but I think just to keep the integrity of the locks and the hair, I wouldn't want them to be too long. And the final thing that I've learned on this second Sisterlocks journey is not to take things for granted. So I'm going to hark back to my first journey again, where I believe anyway, I had a lot more hair then, and I just took it for granted. I took the growth, the thickness, the length, the everything for granted. But this time around, no. And all of these points are linked, actually. It's being aware of what is there, which, you know, I'm looking at the length and the health of the hair, and just appreciating what's happening, understanding what's happening, and not taking it for granted. And part of that, for me, not taking it for granted, is actually looking after it. So whether that is having my satin bonnet at night, washing regularly but not too regularly so that it compromises the integrity of the Sisterlocks. And for me, and this is a personal thing, not doing too much in the way of styling, whether it's wearing it tied up or wearing it tied up tightly, which I don't do either of those, or styling edges. So it's just all of those things, not taking it for granted and not stressing it unduly, but just doing all of the things that, and you know, ultimately your hair will tell you what it needs and what it doesn't. Or if you do something that it doesn't like, it will protest. And so I've learnt that over the years. And so this time around, I'm paying attention to that, and I'm embodying all of that in the day-to-day care. So yeah, these are the things that I've learnt this time around in this second Sisterlocks journey. And I just wanted to go back to a point I made earlier about umla oil. As you've known, if you've seen some of the videos on the channel, I'm in the process of testing umla oil, one of my many DIYs that I've been using. And I'm also testing it for its effect on grey hair and grey hair growing out of the root, and also for the health, strength and thickness of the hair. And in the time that I'm testing it, over a 6-month period, I'm not going to use henna, so that we can see some true results. And I'll be reporting in a future video on the success or otherwise of that experiment. And I will also be telling you what's happened in terms of what does the grey hair look like after 6 months of not using henna. And I'll also be talking about how to make umla oil. So if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, and then you'll get a notification if you tap the bell of when I publish that particular video or set of videos. And I hope you found this video useful. Would love to hear your comments or any of your own experiences, whether this is your first, second or third Sisterlocks journey. And look forward to talking to you next time. And thank you for watching. See you next time.